And here now I can welcome Ben Hodges, the former commander of the US Army in Europe. We're going to get straight to that, which is very good news for me and for us. Good to have you here, Ben.
Thank you very much, John.
Now, can I get your thoughts on some of what we've been hearing most recently then General? The idea of taking Greenland by force, as you'll have seen where you are, as we've seen where we are, as we see from all over the world, has caused a good deal of concern and alarm among NATO's American allies. Certainly in Denmark, where they're talking about the destruction of the NATO alliance itself. And now we have Marco Rubio saying, no, look, the plan is to do this by dealing rather than force. I'm guessing that will be, as far as you're concerned, also be words you have been quite keen to hear.
So you remember and by the way, nobody's mentioned Epstein in this entire week. That's not a coincidence. In the first Trump administration, he offered or said, I want to buy Greenland. So that idea, which I dismissed, I thought this is ludicrous, is not a new one. But to hear it coming back this week, now it seems very serious, given what the administration did in Venezuela and the language coming out of the White House since then from Mr. Miller. Clearly, they are looking at this is implementation of the new national security strategy, where the administration believes that the Western Hemisphere is theirs, and that they can use whatever force necessary to do what they want.
Yes.
The problem is that what they claim about Greenland, just like they said that Venezuela was all about drugs, obviously it was not, it was about oil and access. In the case of Greenland, they say the place is covered with Chinese and Russian Navy ships. That's absolutely false, easily provable not to be the case. And then they say, well, we want access, and the Danes have been offering this. So this is one of the biggest own goals in American history. I think we're going to cause enormous damage to our relationships with long good allies.
Yes.
It's going to come back to hurt American security, because people are not going to share intelligence with us. They're going to restrict access to bases. For what?
Yeah, and it's always worth bearing in mind. Do share your thoughts on this, General, that the only voice that ultimately really counts in the Trump administration is that of the president himself. We heard there Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, expressing a clear preference, which we can imagine he feels perhaps quite strongly, against military action to seize Greenland and in favour of some sort of diplomatic and business deal. But you mentioned Stephen Miller, the president's deputy chief of staff. His language was extraordinarily belligerent. He spoke about power and force being the only influences that really matter in the world. He spoke about America being a superpower, and a superpower that needs to act like a superpower. That is rather more alarming. And in the end, President Trump, well, it's been pointed out many times that you only know what President Trump is thinking from the last thing that he said, because it's capable of being changed within minutes.
Yeah, you're right. I would say, and of course I can't prove this, but Mr. Miller probably represents how the president thinks more than does Secretary Rubio or anybody else. I mean, Miller has been a close conversation partner, let's say, over the last several years, and he seems to have a Rasputin-like effect there. Now, I don't know if he's inspiring or if he's giving voice to what the president's thinking, but that really got my attention. This amazing interview by Miller with
Jake Tapper. Yeah.
I was dumbfounded. I've never heard an American official. I hear Americans say stupid things like this, but I've never heard an American official or somebody from the Oval Office use that kind of language. And unfortunately, it does represent how quite a few people in the administration think.
The stakes here are alarmingly high, are they not? We've heard from the Danish leader that the row over Greenland could lead to the collapse of NATO itself, and it is suggested, I wonder if you think this is how this might play out. If it came to that ultimate confrontation and falling out, do you imagine we could see NATO partners, not least Denmark, expelling American personnel and installations from their territory?
I have been waiting for this for when you think of how much we depend on access and bases in UK and Spain, Italy, Greece, Turkey, Germany, Poland, other places. I mean, I don't think how much we depend on our allies for access, but also for intelligence sharing, not just within the Five Eyes, but even bilateral. You know, and these are not guaranteed in perpetuity. So I think, fortunately, most people in the Congress understand this and the significance of the alliance, even if Mr. Miller doesn't. So the Congress, I have some confidence, is going to finally begin to assert some of its constitutional authority
Yes.
in this year, unlike last year, because it feels to me that they are not quite as scared of Trump this year as they were last year.
Interesting. That is interesting. I wonder, as a military commander with high level experience, I wonder what you think when you look into the future for Venezuela, and as far as that is possible. The extraction, the seizure of Maduro went astonishingly smoothly. It was an incredibly accomplished military operation. The future is full of uncertainty. As you'll know, there are so many militias and armed forces in Venezuela. At the moment, most of them seem to share support for the government in the capital. But there's endless possibility of long-running chaos in that country.
Yeah, you're exactly right, John. With all credit to the special operators and the intelligence professionals who pulled off the capture of President Maduro and his wife, after that, it feels a whole lot like we're going down the same terrible path we've done numerous times in our recent history, where we did the easy part very well. What we haven't done is figure out what comes next. And the idea that somehow the U.S. is going to run Venezuela just by the threat of force against the Venezuelan government is ludicrous. The way you just described, who's in power now? I mean, it's the same regime, just without Maduro. Plus, you've got, repression is already happening in Caracas and other places. So either they plan to use air power, which is not going to be terribly effective, or you want to put boots back on the ground. And the president was pretty cavalier when he said, "I'm not scared of boots on the ground." Of course, it won't be his boots. You're looking at American soldiers or Marines to do what? I mean, I think every commander, first question is, what is my mission? What do you want me to do? And I think the White House and this Pentagon, the Secretary of Defense, really could not answer right now what they would want the military to do.
General, lastly, I've been keen to get your view on the treatment of Senator Mark Kelly, who is a war hero. He was a Navy captain, a hero in the air, a pilot in war zones, more than one war zone, and an astronaut. Well, he advised or guided, if they needed guidance, American armed personnel, military personnel, that they should not accept orders, need not accept orders to break the law. And for that, he's now been censured by the Secretary for Defense. He's facing a demotion. I wonder what effect that will have within the military, and I wonder what your thoughts are.
Well, fortunately, the Secretary of Defense or people advised him not to go with a court-martial because it would have exposed how ludicrous and silly this whole thing is. So they've chosen to take the path of an administrative process that would not be as public. And already they have a problem because you can't bring somebody out of retirement and then try to demote them for something that happened after they were on active duty. So that's not going to apply. So they're going to end up looking like total fools in this process. And Kelly's popularity is going up every time Secretary Hegseth opens his mouth. But it's not lost on people that this Secretary of Defense and this administration will use whatever they can as they seek retribution. But let me close with this, John. I'm so old. I started at West Point in 1976 as an 18-year-old cadet. This was right after Vietnam, just a couple of years after the My Lai massacre. All of my faculty at West Point, all of my instructors were Vietnam veterans. They emphasized over and over and over it would be my duty as a new officer not to obey illegal orders, that my oath to the Constitution was more important than anything. And so this has been ingrained for decades, really in part because of our terrible experience in Vietnam. And that's what Senator Kelly was echoing, reminding us, you have a duty not to obey and illegal order. And with this administration, what we're seeing in Venezuela, Greenland, and on, the potential for illegal orders is huge.
General, pleasure to talk to you as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, former commanding general of the U.S. Army in Europe.